Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, and welcome to On the Aisle with me, Tom Alvarez. My guest today is jazz pianist, educator, and recording artist Monika Herzig. Join me now as I go on the aisle for my conversation with Monika.
Let your imagination soar with Audible. With stories across every genre, from expert advice to fantasy, you'll be inspired to imagine new worlds, possibilities, and ways of thinking. Listening can even lead to a positive change in your mood, habits, and overall well-being. As an Audible member, you'll get to choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including bestsellers and new releases. Allow yourself to delve into the spooky this season by listening to classics like Stephen King's The Shining and Pet Sematary. There's more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500. That's audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500.
Worried about letting someone else pick out the perfect avocado for your perfect impress them on the third date guacamole? Well, good thing Instacart shoppers are as picky as you are. They find ripe avocados like it's their guac on the line. They are milk expiration date detectives. They bag eggs like the 12 precious pieces of cargo they are. So let Instacart shoppers overthink your groceries so that you can overthink what you'll wear on that third date. Download the Instacart app today to get free delivery on your first 3 orders, while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
So first of all, I don't recall when it was that I saw you last perform, but I think it was the cabaret at the Columbia Club. Do you remember that?
That's a long time ago.
I know. And as you know, they've moved to their own space some time ago. So I was trying to remember, and I'm sure I was there to review it, but yeah, it's been a while, but I keep track of you because, I think we're Facebook friends, but beyond that, I've seen a lot of your press and everything else. So I'm sorry that, this podcast will air after the fact of this tour that you're going on. But for our listeners, tell us about it. Obviously, you can't report at this point how it turned out, but you could predict, okay?
Well, I hope I can predict, but yeah, this is a very, very special occasion. This is my group that I call Sheroes, and the reason why is because it's something I started 10 years ago. I put together an all-star, all-female instrumentalist jazz group with a purpose, because, if you close your eyes and imagine a jazz band on stage, I bet what you're seeing inside, what you imagine is not how we look like. It's usually you have male group and a vocalist. That's the usual setup. So I realized with all the research that I do too, that one of the most important aspects, if we want to slowly but surely change those perceptions, we need strong role models on stage. So the purpose of this group, so this is actually a very large group. This is so for the recordings, it's 7 of us, and it's an all-star group. They're mostly based in New York. I recently added a bass player from Vienna, from Austria, that joined us. And so 10 years ago, we started with our first recording. We did it at the Avatar Studios in New York. And this is our 4th one. And we produced this one. Actually, Lenny White, the legendary drummer with Chick Corea and Miles Davis, he was producing for us and helped us guide the music. So it came out July 19 on Soho Records. And now we're touring it. It's actually also doing really great on radio. By the last week, we were number 17 on the Jazz Week charts. And this first tour, we have US tour, and it's through Indianapolis, the Jazz Kitchen, and Cincinnati, South Bend. We're going to Cleveland. And then we'll close at the DC Jazz Festival and the Detroit Jazz Festival. So it'll be really great to get this powerful group on those very, very large stages.
Well, that's exciting and also impressive that you're going to have that kind of exposure.
Well, I mean, we've been at it for 10 years, and those are some of the leading musicians in the world. So, I mean, it's really important to actually be on those stages and make that statement, you know.
And go ahead and tell me about those musicians and briefly describe their backgrounds or the highlights of their career or whatever.
Absolutely. So for this last recording, we had Jamie Baum on flute, who's been with us from day one. And she's New York based. She is also an award-winning composer. She had Guggenheim Awards and other big awards. She's usually number one, number two in the jazz flute category in the Downbeat Awards, and has her own group that she's been touring with for a long time that she composes for. So all-star musician there. On the trombone, we have Reut Regev. She's also based in New York, but from Israel originally. She plays with Hasmat Modine, the group, and with Anthony Braxton. She does a lot of avant-garde music. And then we have, for this recording, we had on saxophone Camille Thurman, who was with the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra for a year and is also carving her name out as a saxophonist and vocalist too. Lainey Stern joined us, the guitarist, Mike Stern's wife, also from New York, long career as a guitarist. Rosa Avila is the drummer, and she's been with Andy Williams for 18 years in Branson while he was still doing the theaters at that time. And she's now one of the Broadway musicians. She's in the Suffs show right now. And then Gina Schwartz on bass from Vienna. She is one of the very, very few jazz professors on bass there at the large university, and one of the prominent musicians from Europe. So that's a quick synopsis of some of the musicians. Over the years, we also had Ingrid Jensen, we had Ada Ravati, and many more that played with us.
Wow, that really is impressive. What an extraordinary assemblage. And how did that all happen? Are these people you have played with before? You crossed paths, you just reached out? I mean, how in the heck did you produce such a group?
So when I envisioned the concept, I actually had a manager in New York, and we thought about this. I pretty much cold called all the ones that I thought are the best, and they were all like,
kidding.
Of course, we'll do it. Well, we're happy to. I mean, they know they can trust me, and they know it'll be good music, so they were in.
Wow. Nevertheless, to cold call, you never know what the reaction will be. But as you said, they probably knew all these people too and their reputations. And, who else is involved? You know how that goes, right?
Exactly, right.
So let's go all the way back to you. The obvious, but for our listeners, I cover music, theater, and dance, and jazz is actually, when it comes to music, I love jazz, and, I support jazz and advocate for jazz. And so I'm always interested in how musicians such as yourself, I'm interested in the origins of your love because there isn't a jazz player I've met yet who is so passionate about the music. So tell me how it is that you found jazz and how did jazz find you?
I mean, I'm sure they're all very passionate about the music because that's your biggest reward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, jazz has a very small part of the overall market, and it's not easy to make a career and a living as a jazz musician. But if you get caught by the passion bug, you have to do it.
So how did you catch the bug?
I actually grew up in Germany and always wanted to learn piano and play, and had forced my parents to buy a piano. They didn't have one. And got involved into groups there in high school and realized I really, really like the interaction. I don't want to sit by myself in a room, and practice and then perform by myself, which you have to do if you learn classical piano. But I want to be in the process with others and create. So that's why I love jazz. And then in those groups that I were playing, I kind of connected to the guitarist, and I had the opportunity for a exchange program in 88 and for a year, and I took it. We bought one-way tickets and we said, well, we're going to the land of jazz and we're going to make this happen. So we've been here ever since and tried to make.
Where was that? Where did you land?
We started at the University of Alabama. It was an exchange program, and I ended up getting a master's there. And then I applied at IU for the doctoral program because I wanted to keep going and I need the visa, and I had heard about David Baker. So I got my doctorate at IU, and then I taught for a long time at IU too.
Oh, well, I have to tell you, we have something in common. Back in the 70s, I believe it was, I was working in television and I made documentary films, and David Baker was a subject of one of those documentaries. And he, oh my gosh, what an amazing human being, much less, a jazz master, and I'm sure you'll agree, iconic. Any jazz musician I've ever talked to, when I drop that name, everyone knows who he is, worldwide, right?
Well, I ended up doing a book on him that came out in 2011 for his
Really?
birthday.
We can do a show on David Baker.
Of course
Hello.
we can. Yeah, it's on IU Press.
Wow.
You can find it. But it was, I talked to a lot of people all over the world, and there was a general agreement,
Remarkable. So, but back to you. I have a question. What is it that Europeans in Germany in particular, how were they introduced to jazz and why do they love it as they do?
Well, jazz is a worldwide language in the meantime. I often find that here people think, how in the world do you hear it? I mean, the touring circuits are since the 20s are the world. So all the musicians are everywhere and you hear it everywhere on the radio. So you hear it everywhere and everybody plays it. And there's a lot going on in Europe, I would say, in terms of really interesting directions in jazz that
they're much more sophisticated than Americans, I believe.
Well, it's just different backgrounds and different ways of putting things together. But there's some directions that are really pushing jazz in new ways forwards that we don't see yet here. So it's really interesting.
Oh, really? So they've not only started with appreciating it, they went on to create their own. And we don't hear it as much as they hear us. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's actually about all music. The American music export and market is so dominant around the world that
right.
It goes everywhere, but there's very few things that make it here. You have to go to other places. So often being here, you're not even aware about all these really cool directions and combinations all over the world because they don't make it in this market. They're not integrated.
This is very interesting to me because I'm thinking about like I'm Latino, so of course I'm always on the lookout for music from Latin America that's coming out. And I notice a lot more Mexican artists are crossing over into, in the American music scene, rock, jazz, hip hop, which is when I started hearing that. I thought that is so interesting. Of course, there are a lot of bilingual artists too. And I'm hearing, because I seek it out, German, French, Italian, they've all got music scenes too that we don't even know about. It's very interesting. And a beautiful development, don't you think?
Well, I mean, the world is becoming a global place because we're so connected. So
And with technology too.
we can exchange information, we can exchange culture easier.
Hmm.
So in some ways it's great because we can hear everything. In other
Hmm.
ways, we have to be careful we don't lose some localities and groups and smaller communities. So
In reading your bio, every bio that I see, and I Googled you and you're all over the place, which tells me a lot about your reputation and your career. But you're always referred to as German born. When will you stop being referred to as German born? I mean, you've been here a long time, right? But I take it that's just you're proud of your heritage and your origins.
well,
Or is it
I'm
the
not sure.
is it the press? Is it the press that
I
does?
think it's the press latching on. They always want to put you in a category. I've spent more of my life here than I spent
Yeah.
in Germany.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I'm a
an art
citizen too.
I get it. I'm an artist as opposed to a Latino artist. How about I'm an artist who happens to be Latino or German or whatever, but I digress. So, what was it like going to the University of Alabama? Was it like, talk about culture shock?
It was a bit of a culture shock when we first got there, because we had bought this one-way tickets and we thought we're going to the land where everybody loves and plays jazz and we'll just learn this. And you have to get used to a few different conventions.
Yeah,
But
did you have an awareness though of sort of the historical implications of like, the South and what happened here during the civil rights period and all that? I mean, did you have any, concerns about that? People, stereotypes about Southerners and all that.
right, right. I mean, of course, the history we all learn in school. That's part of
Sure.
history. But getting there, I didn't have any stereotypes about good or bad. Of course, we knew about the Governor Wallace history and we're a
Yeah.
little. But what I
You were
found,
you were focused on the music. Apparently, they must have had a really good program, right? Is that
they
what you
do. They do. They had just built a brand new music school, in Birmingham has actually a good scene. Sun Ra is from Birmingham and Dinah Washington is from Tuscaloosa.
Yeah,
So, every locality has a very special scene, just like Indianapolis with Indiana Avenue. I mean,
yeah,
and so when we got there, it was very interesting because we realized once, especially when we played with Black musicians, and they realized we were from Germany, they often had been stationed there and had really good memories and associated us with the people where you could be whoever you wanted to be. And so we really were welcomed in the community. And I loved that. And it was very special.
No, I find that fascinating too. Soldiers, former soldiers who were stationed during the war. And of course, the transformation of Germany after the war, which continues, and it's just, I've never been there, but I have plenty of associations there. I would love to. I would love to. I'm fascinated about that transformation and how it affected the psyche of your country. And, their willingness now to be so open and, liberated in so many ways. It's truly it's a truly wonderful thing that all that healing has taken place, you know?
I think it could be a very good model because, here it's just not happening. The healing needs to happen since a long time. I mean, it was much more powerful and deeper what happened here in terms of slavery and all that, and it's not going as smoothly to
You make
get.
a good point. You make a very good point about that. But, the horrific things that happened in Germany and, now what? There are that's like two generations that passed.
It's at least three.
Yeah, these three generations, and they may have people in their family and all, but even a lot of those people who wouldn't talk about it, grandparents and great grandparents, I'm seeing more and more people willing to talk about it now and to discuss the past, so that they could move forward. And there's not as much judgment. It seems to me, again, but yeah, I'm very interested in German culture. Of course, about Indianapolis's German cultural heritage, right?
Exactly. We actually do an exchange. Indianapolis and Cologne are sister cities.
Uh-huh.
And we do every year a concert in Cologne, bringing together
Really?
teams since 11 years now. So we did a lot of the Indiana Avenue history. This year we did
Sure.
because of the centennial, and we did David Baker before and all of that. And then we also did a program on T.C. Steele's painting, transforming those into music. So yes, there's a strong connection and a lot of exchange.
Have you ever played the Athenaeum?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not presenting music, but we've done private programs in there. Yeah.
But you've never done a concert there, the main stage, the indoor stage at the Athenaeum. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we did a poetry program, I think, once there.
Yeah. So talk about your overall career. Are you living the life that you dreamed of?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, jazz is a very small economy. It's some of the people with the highest education and the highest skills and the most time invested, but the financial rewards are the smallest. So I've been also always teaching, which I love to do. I've been teaching for IU for 25 years. And 2 years ago, I took a job in Vienna as a professor of artistic research. So I'm spending half of my time there and just jumpstarting projects that focus on artistic work in a reflective way. And it's super, super special to be able to do that.
Well, it's been a while, as I said, since I've heard your music, but it occurred to me, well, of course, I can't have you guest on the show without giving listeners a taste of your music. So, I'd like to play some pieces, By the way, I need to let the audience in. What was the piece that we heard right after the introduction of this episode? What was that piece?
So at the beginning, we actually heard the title track of this new album. It's called All in Good Time. And it features Camille Thurman was the saxophone soloist on that.
Okay. And so this next piece that we're going to hear, tell me about it.
So we're going to listen to another one of my compositions. It's called Right Now. And it combines some of the swing and modern grooves.
Okay, let's listen. Well, listening to that, reminds me that the process of making music it's an art form. Music in general, civilians often ask, where do you come up with those ideas and that inspiration? Do you like walk around with music in your head all the time? How is it for you?
Well, I mean, every artist will tell you it's you have to hone your craft, meaning you don't wait for like some lightning bolt to strike, but you have ways, just like you practice your instrument, you practice your composing. So you'll think about things you when you hear something that's interesting, you'll keep track of it, and just every day putting something on paper and putting thoughts together. So
So that's how you do it. You put it on paper.
everywhere.
You carry around a little note. Well, your iPhone, do you make notes or you literally carry around pieces of paper or a notebook?
Well, it's often also exercises just when you practice, to start out with little exercises, and it often morphs into a melody idea that you just put down and then little by little put together.
This isn't about me, but we share some things in common. Well, actually, a lot. But recently, I composed my first melody, and I did it in my sleep. And I woke up and I hummed it into my iPhone, and I sent it to the musician I'm collaborating with. I'm doing a documentary. That's a long story. But if I hadn't done that, I would have lost it. So, and again, it was my maiden voyage into composing, music. And it's just, I've got the bug now. That whole process, it's a beautiful thing that if, in your case, especially based on what you've done, it's truly a gift, and you're very gifted.
Thank you.
So, tell me about like we were talking about the trajectory of your career. So, but it sounds to me like you've got a lot stored in that brain of yours. As what are some of the things that you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
There's a lot of people I would love to play with, and I just want to see, the integration happen, that we don't have to have this imbalance on stage anymore, this all male bands with the vocalist singer in front. We just need to get over that. So I want people to come together, and there's a lot of people I'd love to play with.
So collaboration is really big for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in terms of exposure, from the time I first saw you at the Columbia Club, which we can't remember the year, but it sounds like you've really made some great progress. Just the fact that you were able to network with all these musicians and you knew them and they knew you, that says a lot. It says a
Well,
lot.
you hone your skill, and if you show that you're dedicated and work hard, David Baker always said that. He said, I might not be the most gifted person in the world, but I can outwork everybody.
Mm-hmm. And what is your work ethic? How would you describe it? Tell me about the daily life of Monika Herzig.
You don't want to know it, otherwise you get tired.
No, really, I'd like to know. I
Well,
mean,
I do usually start. I'm a runner, so that gets me going
ah,
in the morning. So I'll do my running. Mornings are practice time usually. So, and tour.
do you find running to be a meditative experience? I used to be a runner, so I used it to meditate, problem solve, and I did some of my best work running, you know?
Well, it's, the way your brain works, just like you said, the melody came to you in your sleep, is you have to let it connect dots freely. And to do that, you have to let it go. And like when you sleep, you're in this half state where the brain just does its thing, but you don't influence. And that's how you get those connections. And the same with running. If you get into this state and you just let the brain waves go, you realize how all these ideas pop into your head and how it jumpstarts you in directions you weren't thinking of.
Call that there are chemicals involved in your body, natural chemicals. They used to say that they were endorphins, but apparently I hear that there's something else that's happening amongst runners, And I've interviewed my friend, I'm sure you know who Austin, the principal cellist of the ISO. He's a runner too, and so is Kevin Lynn, the concert master. In my interviews with them, like with you, we've talked about running, and they have the same. They use running as a way to advance, their creative juices. So it's really cool. The more musicians I talk, there are a lot of us who, or I don't any longer because I can't physically, but there happen to be a lot of musicians who are also runners. There's a connection there. And plus you have to have the stamina, don't you, for stage work? It helps you.
I mean, you have to keep your body in shape. I mean, that's just something you have to take care of, and it helps.
Tell me where you run in Bloomington. You must have plenty of places. And by the way, you do live in Bloomington, right? Or Indianapolis. Where do you live?
I live in Bloomington about half of the year, and as I said, the other half I spent now in Austria, in Vienna. So I go.
Why Austria? Is that because of the teaching job? Are you from
I have
there?
a job there. Yeah, no, I'm not from there, but I have a job there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, how is it living in two countries simultaneously?
Well, I'm still getting used to it. It's pretty recent, and plus,
Oh,
my family's here, so of course, I miss them when I'm there. But it's all.
tell me about your family.
Well, my husband and my two 22 and 25-year-old kids.
Oh, no kidding. And what do they do?
So one is an aspiring circus artist and costuming. So he's trying to find a space. And then my daughter just graduated from IU in computer science.
Oh my goodness. And what are their names, first names?
Jasmine and Zachary.
So Zachary wants to be a circus artist.
Mm-hmm.
Is he training in Peru or someplace like that? Peru has like this circus culture.
This culture. No, there's actually schools for acrobatics, so this is the modern circus, the Cirque du Soleil type acrobatics. And he got a degree or certificate from Circadium in Philadelphia.
Wow. It seems to me there's going to be a lot of opportunities for, contemporary circus artists since they took the animals away, I'm glad they did. And so it seems like, like Cirque du Soleil started it. Is there a movement to, is there more work available for circus artists now?
I mean, it's tricky. I mean, it's also a big word. I mean, there's a lot of different types.
Oh, I see.
The trapeze, the serials, the silks, the ropes. So it just depends what shows, where, what's needed. I don't know. It's a different world for me too.
It's interesting that you raised two kids, and one's an artist and another one is interested in well, obviously more than interested is left brain and right brain. And did you kind of did you encourage them to go into music, or you just let them do what they wanted to do with no pressure?
I always provided the opportunities and taught them, and they all both were, in choir. Actually, the computer scientist girl, she was in orchestra and band in school. She played viola and oboe, and she had a band where she was the drummer. She played bass, so she can do it all if she wants to.
And in my experience, I have encountered a lot of people who have both talents, the left and the right brain. So that's not unusual. So tell me about your husband.
Well, he's a guitarist. I mean, he's been on the regional scene, a fixture since we're here too.
And what is his name?
Peter Kienle.
Okay, and tell me a bit about him and his career.
So, I mean, he's always been performing with a lot of groups. He's with Kathy Morris a lot, and of course our own groups. We had a fusion band in the 90s, in the early 2000s called Beeble Brox, where we were playing all the stages and touring here, and just playing with and everybody all the time.
So for our listeners, drop some names of the venues that you've played in Central Indiana.
I mean, we always are regulars. We played at the Chatterbox actually Monday nights for 16 years. So always, and we're still there on the weekends. We do the Jazz Kitchen every so often. Bloomington had some places that disappeared. That was Bear's Place. We did the Indie Jazz Fest many years. Any of the places where you hear jazz, we're probably there.
Well, because of all those venues, they all do such a great job of marketing. Then that's what accounts for your name. Even people who aren't jazz oriented, you have a very solid brand, I think, and I hear it all the time in my world. So, it takes years to build a brand. And I think that, yours seems to be omnipresent. And of course, people like David Andrzejczyk, and David Ali and people who run these venues, they're good promoters. Don't you agree?
They have to be. That's their living. I mean, and we need those clubs to survive. I mean, otherwise the economy doesn't work.
Well, I try to cover as much jazz or, talk to jazz artists as I can. And you just remind me of what a wealth of talented people we have on the jazz scene here in Central Indiana. So, let's listen to another piece of music that you sent. So what is this next piece that you brought?
We'll listen to one of the bass player's compositions behind its influence with the thought of Nick Drake's music and that atmosphere and his Things Behind the Sun song. It's not a cover, but just in the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Second
okay.
line.
Well, let's hear it. Okay, so beyond this tour, I assume that you're probably already working on other projects. Do you always have like a lot of projects going on at the same time that you're working on that are certain stages of development?
Yeah, I mean, since they all take so much time, you're always thinking ahead. So with this project, we're also actually doing a European tour end of October, and then we'll end up in Nepal and India in November. So that's coming up then. And then in my position as professor of artistic research, I was actually able to just receive one of the large European Union grants to do a similar compilation project that Tara Lynn Carrington did for the Berkeley Press with the 101 new
Wow,
standards.
congratulations.
Yeah, so for the next 4 years, I'll be putting together this compilation of lead sheets by European women composers, and pull that.
How about recording? You working on anything or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have the project that we did about the TC steel paintings that
Right.
is in the can. I just haven't figured out yet how to put it out because I need to put the visuals with it. It doesn't make sense, only the audio. And then I really want to do some trio recordings, but I have to find the right people and get some money back because I'll be broke after those tours.
And TC Still, are you inspired by visual art? Is visual art, are you a fan?
Um, I wouldn't say I'm like a fan on all. I very much appreciated it, but for this special project, we wanted to, look at some Indiana legacy. It was part of the exchange project, and TC Steele is a very important connection figure because he studied in Munich, he landed in
Oh
Cologne,
my goodness, that's
and
okay.
he was sponsored by the German beer people from Indianapolis who wanted him to succeed. And he brought together all these artists then in Nashville, Indiana, because they followed him down there once, he started establishing that
So
scene.
once again, there's a German connection to Indiana that's, it's astounding when you think about all the connections, right? And well, of course, you living in the Bloomington area, his home, have you spent any time there, which is now a museum?
Right. It's called the House of the Singing Winds. And that's what we also called that project. And
Oh, okay. Okay. And are you familiar with the Brown County Art Museum? By any chance, do you have a connection with them?
I
Because
did.
they have TC Steels there, I believe.
They have these steels. IU has a few, and I did quite a few programs down at the Brown County Art Museum. And yeah, they're great, great group.
Yeah. Any other projects in the works?
Yeah, well, I mean that 4 year European Union project gonna keep me busy for a
Where,
while.
where are some of the European tour stops that you're going to make?
We'll actually start in Austria. We'll do Graz, and then we'll go to Passau, and then we'll do Vienna, the Porgy and Bess Club. Then we'll go to Germany, 2, 3 clubs, and do a Jazz Girls Day. Then we'll do a festival in Madrid, in Spain, and then we'll go to Nepal for a week, and then end up in New Delhi.
Wow. Wow. You are doing some incredible stuff. I'm really happy for you that, it sounds like your career is flourishing. Although, as you say, it's a limited market and that you're able to do that to make a living. But, sounds like you do it for love, right?
If I wouldn't love it, there would make no sense to do it.
Yeah. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to share with the audience about your work?
Well, I just couldn't consider when you think something is interesting or important, then support the artist, the best way is, for example, that new album. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I'll stream it on my service." But the best thing you can do to support is go directly to the artist's website and connect and support by
Okay, so
sharing
people
with
can,
some friends or.
tell me how people can find you, reach out to you. You have a website, social media, I presume. Tell me your website address, share your website address and all your handles for your social media.
So just to make sure, my name Monika is spelled with a K. So it's
Yeah.
Nika Herzig, Herzig. So if you look
Mhm.
for Monika with a K, Herzig.com, or the handles or on these Facebook and Instagram, just look for Monika Herzig. You can't miss me.
Do people often mispronounce your last name, Herzog?
Yeah, all kinds of things. Even the Jazz Kitchen managed to misspell it on the big banner that they had over the last months. They made a
Yeah, well,
whole.
that happens with my last name too. People get freaked out when there's like what they consider a non-American name, you know what I mean? So, well, this has been a delight talking to you. I feel like it's been too long. It's unfortunate that we didn't cross paths before, but I promise you I will stay in touch and hopefully I can come see a live performance. When will you next be playing in a venue in Indianapolis? Do you know?
I'll be back in December and I will do the new club Sarah's Soiree in Noblesville in
And what
December.
is that? I've not heard of that. What is that place
So
called?
it's called Sarah's Soiree, and she opened a little while ago, and she's doing really great things. I mean, she's featuring jazz every night and lots of really cool groups.
Sarah's Soiree.
Yeah,
Interesting. In Noblesville.
in Noblesville, yes.
Are you on the website right now? Do you know? So
No,
maybe people could look it up, our
yeah,
listeners.
they'll find it. Find Sarah's Soiree. She's very prominent on Facebook too, and always announces the shows. So we'll be there December 18th and the 28th for sure. And then there'll be more things. You often find us down in West Baden too on the weekends.
Okay, well, I know that you've got a pack or something to get ready for your tour, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. It's been an absolute delight chatting with you, and we're going to hear one more piece to close out the show. So what is it that we're going to listen to?
So we're going to do Parade of Sadness, which is one more of my tunes. And I called it Parade of Sadness because it's in the key of D minor, and they say D minor is the saddest key there is. But it's
Mhm.
a upbeat New Orleans type groove, very fun. So it'll get us parading around the room.
And what's the inspiration for this work?
It's there's a lot of unison melodies and challenging melodies, so it's a good practice piece, and I love the New Orleans grooves.
Well, let's listen to it. thank you again for sharing your time with me, and I hope our listeners will reach out to you, and hopefully they will find you and you will be able to share your art with them. So again, thank you so much.
I love that. Thank you.
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official neighborhood newsletter for 16 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.